Let me tell you about a transformation so powerful that Carl Jung called it one of the most unsettling evolutions he had ever witnessed in human nature. It began with people who looked fragile, quiet souls, the ones who apologized for existing, empaths who carried everyone else's pain until something inside them finally shifted. Jung called this awakening a confrontation with the shadow. But what he saw wasn't darkness taking over. It was light learning how to protect itself. He noticed a pattern among the kindest patients in his Zurich clinic. They weren't weak. They were untrained weapons, compassion sharpened by years of endurance. These people had been the emotional shock absorbers of their families, the ones who forgave rage, absorbed addiction, and explained away betrayal. When Jung listened to them, he expected confusion or fragility. Instead, he found something that made his hands shake as he wrote his notes. They weren't broken. They were studying. Every outburst, every manipulation, every wound, recorded in the mind with surgical precision. Not for revenge, but for understanding. Jung began to realize that these so-called victims weren't passive. They were psychological cartographers, mapping human behavior in silence. They knew their abusers' triggers, insecurities, and patterns better than any therapist could. But they never used that knowledge until one defining moment, the moment of betrayal, the clarity event. It always came from someone they trusted completely, a spouse, a parent, a friend. And when it happened, something inside them clicked. All the data they'd been collecting assembled itself. Most people expected an explosion of emotion, tears, anger, chaos. But that's not what happened. The empath became silent, unnaturally calm, as if every system in their mind aligned at once. Their intuition and logic fused. They stopped doubting their perceptions, and they began to see with absolute clarity. Jung wrote that this moment marked the death of the victim and the birth of consciousness. It was shadow integration in real time, the point where empathy evolved into precision. These weren't breakdowns, they were breakthroughs. Jung realized the empath's greatest danger wasn't feeling too much. It was being told that their feelings were wrong. Because once they stopped believing that lie, they became unstoppable. After that breaking point, Jung said something profound happened. He no longer saw victims sitting across from him. He saw evolution unfolding in real time. These empaths, the same ones who had once absorbed everyone else's chaos, began to reorganize internally. It wasn't rage that rose from their silence. It was clarity. They stopped explaining the behavior of others and started observing it. Not emotionally, but analytically, like surgeons, dissecting the psychology of those who once controlled them. Jung documented how, in this state, their perception sharpened to something almost supernatural. Within moments of meeting someone, they could see through masks, childhood wounds, manipulative tendencies, hidden fears. Their accuracy stunned him. They weren't psychic. They were simply paying attention, at a level most people never reach. What others called intuition, they called information. Every gesture, every tone, every silence, cataloged, analyzed, understood. It wasn't sensitivity anymore. It was mastery. Jung began to realize that empathy wasn't weakness. It was pattern recognition, emotional intelligence sharpened by survival. These individuals had evolved beyond emotional reaction. They had become emotional architects. But here's what unsettled Jung most. Once awakened, these empaths changed permanently. They could no longer be gaslighted. They could no longer be manipulated. They no longer needed to prove their worth through kindness. Their forgiveness became selective. Their compassion became strategic. And that frightened people, because when an empath integrates their shadow, the dynamic of power reverses. The manipulator senses it instantly, that quiet, invisible shift. The energy they once fed on becomes unavailable. And suddenly, the empath's calm feels like a mirror, reflecting truth too bright to bear. Jung called this the predator's fear. When deceit meets awareness, it trembles. Awakened empaths didn't seek revenge. They didn't need to. Their silence became truth itself. They walked away from toxic families with quiet precision. They ended relationships without explanations. They simply stopped participating in systems that drained them. And everywhere they went, something strange happened. Healthy people felt safe around them. Toxic people felt exposed. Jung wrote, "The awakened empath doesn't announce their power. Others can feel it in their bones." They had become love with boundaries, still kind, still compassionate, but unshakably aware. Jung kept studying his awakened empaths long after their transformations. What he discovered haunted him, not because they were dangerous, but because they were complete. He watched them rebuild their lives with precision. They didn't rush, they didn't cling. They simply moved with quiet awareness, guided by intuition that no longer needed validation. They had become what Jung called selectively empathetic, still capable of deep care, but no longer available for self-destruction. He noticed how everything around them began to shift. Families that had relied on them to absorb dysfunction began to collapse or transform. Manipulators withdrew. Addicts faced themselves. And those who were genuine grew stronger by standing near them. Jung wrote that awakened empaths became mirrors, reflecting truth back to everyone they met. They didn't need confrontation. Their presence alone revealed what others were hiding. He described them as living truth detectors, not because they judged, but because they no longer participated in lies. For the first time, Jung questioned what this meant for the future of psychology itself. He had seen people evolve beyond dependency, beyond illusion. They didn't just heal, they transcended. And that terrified him, because it also meant they had the power to manipulate others if they wanted to. Perfect empathy can cut both ways. But every one of Jung's cases made the same choice. They used their awareness for healing, not control. They had nothing left to prove, no one left to impress. Only a life to live, fully, consciously, freely. Jung called this the return to service, the final stage of transformation, when the healed become healers. These people began guiding others, quietly, not as therapists, but as examples. They didn't preach, they embodied peace. Jung wrote, "They became what humanity was always meant to be. People who can feel everything without being destroyed by it. They could see darkness without losing light. They could love deeply without losing themselves." They had evolved into what he believed was humanity's next stage, not less emotional, but consciously emotional. Empaths who once drowned in other people's storms now became the calm that others sought. They no longer needed to be understood. They simply understood. And maybe that's what awakening really means. Not becoming someone new, but finally remembering who you've been all along. So, if you've ever been told you're too sensitive, too emotional, too much, remember this. Sensitivity isn't your weakness. It's your superpower. The day you learn to wield it consciously, is the day you become unstoppable.